Hey there, this is Tato Gwynn. This is John Doe and I's test bench project for our railroad project. And I'm going to go ahead and refresh my test bench. Let's see, no, that's adding more time. So we're going to run, relaunch the simulation. I'm going to jump it ahead a little bit. Get back to the beginning, and starting up top, we have our start button and then our sync chain. Here's the reset button. It says start button, sync chain, reset button. Here's our clock. And then next we have what's called our sec pulse. That's going to pulse every second in reality. I think it's every 70 nanoseconds for the purposes of this demonstration. And here's our state machine, current state, next state. Wait for start, start count, and we'll go through it. So wait for start, we hit the start button, and we go over to wait, and we go over into start count. It's start count, the countdown mode is enabled. And you can see underneath countdown mode, we have down count. Here's the down count, 4, 3, 2, 1. After that, we go into what we call our play modes. Let me forward this along a little bit. Play modes allows the button presses on player 1 and player 2 to be captured and tallies them until we get 16 points. So here's play modes activated. Player 1 button, and I've got a sync chain for both, or we have a sync chain for both player 1 and player 2. So there those are, and then below that, while we're in play mode here, and we're going to be in it for a minute, we have the press count, player 1 and player 2 press count, and then round total doesn't really figure until after we get up towards or to 16. Then there's a round complete and a decision, and the points are assigned. So here's the buttons are being pressed. We see that it's going 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to zoom in. That'll make this part a little bit more clear, I believe, or I'm sorry, zoom out. So here are the points: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 versus 4. We're going to scoot on ahead until we get right here. So I don't know if you saw in the film, right there where I put that line, that's when we get to the 16 points. The round completion mode is enabled. Then it goes into the decision mode. In the hardware section, you're going to see some bugs, and I think I figured it out. I think I need to do a sync chain or some sort of delay between some of these modes. There's a little bit of an overlap, and I think that's causing us a little bit of problems. So once we get to decision mode, we're going to scroll down a little bit to see where the points are assigned. It looks like round points are 2, and they end up getting assigned to player 2. So let's see if we can figure out what our button presses were. So our button presses were 10 and 6, so 10 minus 8 is 2, so 2 points is correct. And then they're going to get assigned, it's going to come down to sometimes the button press, sometimes the timer, but it looks like in this instance, player 1 pressed the button, and we got the button press right after we got to 16. So player 1 hit an extra button, and thus the points were awarded to player 2. Player 2 wins the round. Player 2's score update is enabled, and that takes the round points right here too, and then assigns them to the player 2 score. Down here, just to see the digits, the 1's digit, 10's digit on player 1, still 0. On player 2, the 1's digit has gone to 2 to indicate that they have those 2 points. So I'm going to go back up to our state machine now. Here's the state machine, and this just kind of shows as we go through the process. We have a wait for start, the start button's pressed, There's another down count. Here we're counting down, but we're also pushing buttons at the same time. So let's see what happens. They should not count those button presses. And down here in press count, you can see press count. It is not counting any of these button presses until the countdown mode ends, and that right there is our play modes. Which that's when we start counting our button presses. And that moves us into the play modes with an S signal, moves us into the play mode state. So we'll keep on moving through here. Let's go back up to our state machine. Play mode. And here at the end of play mode, you see we go into decision. After decision, P2 score. Okay, so it's awarding the points to player 2. Let me get a little closer look at that. So this is kind of tricky to see. Decision, player 2 score. Now that could have also gone to player 1. On the bubblegram, there's a divergent, and they come back together for final test. Final test looks at the points and determines. While we're in final test, we're in that stage. We're comparing the points to see if the game is over or if we need to go back to start. In this case, we're going back to start. So I'm going to fast forward a little further. We go through play mode, and here again is when we're assigning points. In this instance, it looks like the score was 14-2. And so 14 minus, there's the round points, is down there at the bottom. 14 minus the 2, or 14 minus 8 is 6. So that's that's the number of points. And they are getting, here we have player 1 score was 0, and now it's going to 6. So player 1 was awarded those points. And if we look back up here and try to figure out what happened, let's see here. Well, come on down. Player 1. No, yeah. Player 1, update score enable. It looks like in this instance, we had and this won't happen in real life, but this happened on the test bench. Player 1 and player 2 won at the same time. They both pressed the button right at the same time. So that arbitrarily awarded them to player 1. That is an issue in the test bench, but I would say that in reality, at the nanosecond level, if both players push the button at the exact same time, that's not a likely occurrence, and so I don't think we have to worry too much about that. So I'm going to fast forward here till we get a winner. Okay, so here we are in play mode. We have here's the score. It is 14-2, and player 2. Let's see here. Player 2 hits the button. Player 1 gets the points. Player 1's score goes to 26. So at this point, player 1's at 26, and we turn. You can see up here, it switches to player 1 winner. And a few things happen at this point. The game finish signal goes on right there. The player 1 wins game, and the player 1 victory signal go on. So the player 1 wins game signal pushes us into the final state, and the final state has the player 1 victory signal. The player 1 victory signal initiates the blinking on the drivers, and you can see here where the drivers start to blink when not the drivers, when the blinking driver causes the lights to blink. This is something we haven't ironed out. Those are very short pulses, and they won't be visible. So that is, and we're out of time. So unfortunately, we're not going to get that straightened out. I didn't show the LEDs. I want to show that real quick. Back to the very beginning. Here are our LEDs, and we're counting down. This is countdown mode at the very beginning. So, and then once the gameplay starts, you can see the player ones are coming in from the top, player twos from the bottom, and that's as we fill up the LEDs. And then we clear them back out when we go back to countdown mode, and we have another countdown, and then we start counting up the LEDs again, countdown mode, the LEDs again. So the LEDs are functional there, and the design isn't perfect. The blinking is an issue. We're going to see that we're having a little bit of trouble with our 7-segment display. That'll be apparent in the hardware, but I can go ahead and show you in this section. It is successfully blanking the digits and only showing the one that is scored. That's in the anodes. And then on the segments, where are the segments? They should be right there. We can see that the segments aren't really doing what they're supposed to. They're kind of staying the same throughout. So we've got an issue there. Yeah, so we have an issue with the segments, but I think a lot of our issue are these little overlaps between the modes. And not so much there as when we have when we have a winner. So this is an issue, and I don't have time to do it, but I do think what we will make sure of next time is in a situation like this, between each state, we need to probably go to a sync chain just to delay it a little bit to prevent those different modes from overlapping. But that is the test bench. I think, I did not show the countdown timer. That is in the event that, let's see, that is in the event that when, timer for round, in the event that we get to the end and no one presses a button, the timer for round goes off when we get a pulse from the second pulse. So here's an instance where we have the timer pulse going off. You can see it's coordinated sec pulse right there, right there. So when that second pulse comes in, it is the timer for round is activated right here. And when that happens, it looks to see who has more points, and it awards that person more points. So that player. So in this case, player 1 had 14 points. And so player 1 went from 0 to 6. Okay. And earlier I think I described that one wrong. I thought it was a press count, but it looks like it was actually the timer mode. One limitation of what we have is the pulse is every second, and so the time is not consistent how long you have to pause. Sometimes it happens pretty fast, sometimes it's up to a second, but there is a pause there. And that's a case where the timer hit before either the players push the button, and therefore the player 1 who had more points in more button presses, more points in the round, was awarded the points. And that'll do it for our test bench simulation. Thanks.